Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Shift Hits the Fan podcast. My name is Jerry Tavares, and with us today is, as always, the one and only Anthony Pinto. Hi, Anthony.
Hi, Jerry. How are you?
Doing well. I see that now you have here the Malaysia sign so that people know that you are in Malaysia.
Yes.
I have to put mine here. I'm not in New York, I'm in Germany, but my picture is in. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have a special podcast. Today we're going to be talking about how do you as a manager lead people through change when it's not as great as we would like it to be. In the recent days, Volkswagen has announced that they might be closing plants down and that they might be laying off some employees. And of course, this hasn't happened in about 30 years here in Germany. And this is a big deal. Volkswagen is one of the largest employers here in Germany. And people have always felt secure and part of like the Volkswagen family. And now this is being just taken right down from their feet like a rug. And there's a lot of uncertainty. I have a lot of clients at Volkswagen. It's one of my longest clients that I have had here in Germany. And they have a lot of concerns. They're worried. They feel uncertain. So today we're going to be unpacking on how managers can lead their employees through such negative, or I would say challenging times, maybe with ease and flow, or perhaps with less stress than if they wouldn't use the strategies that we're going to share today. So, Tony, please open it up. I would love to hear maybe one strategy on how managers can start leading through this change.
Major change that you showed me the article earlier, right? So it is, quite a drastic change. And one of the things that managers get caught up with is this kind of announcements puts them in a very, very difficult spot because number one, they don't have enough information to talk about it yet. That's really a tough one. Yeah. And they don't even know what their position is and how they are going to be affected. So this is a time when managers will have the biggest challenge in their careers, really. Yeah. So the question is, how do they get the information they need to communicate to their people clearly, and and also kind of get them to be calm about the whole thing, because this can cause a major reaction emotionally. Yeah. And also how to show them, what might be alternative paths. But the question is, how much do they know that they can communicate? That's the first thing. So I think one of the first things the managers need to do is really get up to the management and sit down and say, look, tell us exactly what you're thinking about so they can communicate to the people. Otherwise, what did they communicate? More fear, more questions, that will be unanswered. So that's the first thing that came across to my mind. Yeah. I guess the next step also is, once you know exactly, or as much as you can, what you can communicate to the people, then of course now it really comes from the management itself that says that, okay, this is our plan, this is how we're going to implement it, and this is when we're going to implement it, and the time scale is going to happen. All of that, if that's really clear to the employee, then the employee can have enough information to also plan their own life. Yeah. Right? If things are up in the air, then they can't move. Yeah. And this reminds me, as we spoke about it, the big change that happened in the auto industry in the US many years ago.
Yeah, this is not new, right? So
no, between GM and Ford, right? Now, when they were faced with major challenges, they had to cut back a lot. Now, GM started first, I think, about a year ahead, 1 or 2 years ahead of Ford. And they made an announcement they're going to have cutbacks, but they didn't give enough information. They didn't give clearly, if I can remember correctly, the timeline and all of that. So it created a major havoc in the company. And Detroit, right? The seat of auto industry. Yeah. And they suffered very badly over the period of 1 year of implementing that change, right? Whereas 1 or 2 years later, when Ford was going to make the same change, which is cutbacks of people, and we're talking about huge cutbacks, yeah? They came out with a very, very clear plan for the employees, right? Talking about, the time scale of the implementation, and most of all, I think they focus on how to help employees exit safely if they're going to be cut. And that's one of the things people miss. When you cut staff, you don't think about how they're going to, what's the next step, right? So when you do this kind of drastic measures, the organization needs to put in place and have managers communicate to their people how they can exit effectively, yeah, when they are being exited. And
Yeah.
that's really what came to my mind immediately. Yeah.
Yeah. And let's not forget here that this is not a set plan, what just happened at Volkswagen. These are just ideas of what might happen. So let's not set it in stone because we don't know
Yeah.
if it's the same thing. But at the same time, what this happens, Tony, is that there's so much uncertainty within the employees and within the managers as well, because they don't know what's going to happen because there's nothing set in stone. So all this uncertainty is, I mean, put yourself in that position. If you were in that position working for a company thinking that you are secure, and all of a sudden you hear that in a couple of years, that might not be the case. Let's say you're in your 50s, about, a couple more years, maybe 10
Yeah.
more years to retire. And then all of a sudden you're out of a job, especially in Germany when you're in your late 40s and in your 50s, it is quite difficult to get a job here because
Mm.
people have certain ideas about people in their 50s, and it's quite difficult. So you can imagine you being in that position, how hard it must be for you to even think that you might be in that position. So
Mm.
knowing that, knowing that uncertainty, it is important for the managers, even if they feel uncertain themselves, to look at them as human beings. In large organizations, it is quite easy just to look at a chart and just see a person as a number. And that is exactly the opposite of what we want to transmit as a leader. We want to show that we
Mm.
care. Obviously, that was not the leader's decision. If you are dealing directly with an employee, you're probably not the head of the company if you work at such a large organization. So it was not your decision. So the least or the first thing that you can do is to activate your empathy, show them that you are there for them, and that even though you don't have the answers right now because the balls are up in the air, you are there to
Mm.
communicate with them any information that you get and to start reassuring them that you will do the best that you can to make sure that they keep their jobs, because that's
Yeah.
the most you can do with all this uncertainty.
Yeah, and what crossed my mind also, having a plan of reskilling and giving them new skills. Now, we're talking about the auto industry here, but, on the bigger picture, you realize that the impact of AI even is going to cause people to lose a lot of jobs anyway.
That's the next
Yeah.
one.
So this is coming up. This is going to come through in the next 3 to 5 years, as fast as that, right? And this kind of change is happening faster and faster. So the question is, as far as the employee is concerned, they got to start really looking at themselves and says, I cannot allow my life to be so dependent on my employer. And that's the other part of it, right? So what are the new skills I need to develop? Okay, and you say, if I'm 50, 60 years old, what new skills do I want, right? Yeah. But that's what's going to happen. Yeah. And I guess the starting point is this. I just saw a video that talked about, the question was, in when you face this sort of situations, right? Which is more important? What kind of mindset do you need? More positive thinking or less negative thinking? And all the research shows that what is more effective is not more positive thinking, it's less negative
That's
thinking.
negative thinking. That is correct.
So now the question is, how do managers, help their people at least don't drill down or fall into the chasm of negative thinking?
Yeah.
If they go too far down the road, it's very difficult to find solutions, right? Now, as we know from positive intelligence, that, in every challenge, there is an opportunity, there's a gift and opportunity,
Yeah.
right? How do we see that? It's how they can see that, because the gift and opportunity basically comes, we said, in three areas. Like one is, they can learn something from this experience. They learn about themselves, right? Yeah. Maybe they need to develop new skills, right? And maybe somebody might be inspired to do something different, maybe, champion the industry or champion the workforce, whatever. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this is where the role of the manager is so key. Don't help them from falling into the chasm of negative thinking. Yeah, that would be really difficult to find solutions.
Yeah. As you're saying that, 2 days ago, I went to a large organization to train a manager on his next keynote speech for next week. And
Mm.
as I am walking, I kid you not, as I am walking out of the premises, I passed by the training and development section, and I've been helping